This one is from, I believe you pronounce it Pietor. I believe that's how you say it.
Okay. Fascinating.
hmm
What are all
This is the
these?
one I mentioned earlier that you have to like take a step back and.
Yeah, what is this I'm looking at?
So I think that it's like a factory,
It
and
looks
there's
like it.
like, yeah, I
Wow,
think
these.
this is like that's a factory space. I'm pretty sure, and then it's a man walking through like where you would like clock in or out, I guess.
And there's some kind of reflection here in the bottom. Yeah,
hmm
what's this?
I think that's like a glass pane. Like there's
Uh-huh.
uh, kind of looks
Yeah.
like a clip.
Yeah.
There's just so much to look at,
There's
and then
different
it's
frames. You've
and
got
there's different
multiple
rocks
frames.
being reflected under that.
Yeah, it's an interesting photograph because it makes you stop and look at it, which is
Oh, the
always a good
clocks are
thing.
upside down too. I just
So
noticed
it's
that.
reflecting off of that glass. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
see that now.
upside down. Oh, that's really
But
cool.
where is this guy walking? I mean, it's like that glass surface, is it, it's pretty high. It's not like a table. Anyway, it makes you stop and look, which is kind of, a cool thing about any photograph.
hmm
And the background factory building, with it's not a clock salesman. I don't know. It kind of seems like that would be, why would you have so many different clocks? And looks like there are price tags on it. So I think you're right, Christopher. It looks like something is going on there, like but they're hung up on a chain link fence kind of thing. So that's a pretty
hmm
unusual way to sell clocks. Okay, there's a lot of unusual stuff in here that causes you to stop and ask questions. Bob Holmes said, try to have your viewers asking questions like, what is this? That he made that point about leaving dark spaces in your photograph, and this has dark spaces in it, but really it's the whole photograph itself is just leaving me wondering, well, what is all this? And that's a good thing. So
hmm
bravo on that one.
Yeah,
So
it's great photo.
it would be
All
cool to
right.
hear the story sometime. Maybe if that
Yeah,
isn't in AYP, would you please put it in there?
yeah. Definitely would love to hear more about that one. All right, let's go with this one is from Robert Jenkins, taking a fall drive.
Nice. You got that punctuation point in there. And it's so important because without it, there's just something missing. But with it, it draws your eye. Isn't it amazing how that little punctuation point of the Jeep draws your eye and gives it more vitality? Now you have a lot of different things going in your direction here. You got diagonal lines in that way, but also diagonal lines coming from yeah, right there, the shadows. So you got two sets of diagonal lines, and you've got framing with the trees, and you've got a leading line. You've got, I don't know, many different, I'm not even going to count them all, but you've got maybe five, six, seven compositional techniques all working together. And by the way, I wrote the book on composition, 83 compositional techniques. Many, many, many times, if not always, you see more than one of those techniques in one frame. So just keep that in mind. You can see a composite of different compositional techniques as we see here. And the fall colors are just wonderful. I love that. There's something about warm colors I think our eyes definitely immediately drawn to. And those are nice warm tones that you've got showing up there. So well done.
Yes.
Also, it makes me wonder, are you in that Jeep? Did you stop, tell them to stop there? Maybe you walk down the road, or, you know, you did something. I'm assuming you either waited for that Jeep to come along, or you parked the Jeep and walked into the frame the other way. Either way, that's great. That's being an active photographer, not a passive photographer, which is always a good thing.
All right. This next one is from our friend Mache. an annual visit that my wife and I take to the book fair.
Oh, cool. That's a book fair. Okay.
Yeah, there's several different photos, but this was one that we might show one
So,
or two of these other ones.
it's interesting because you've got multiple frames there. You got the frame on the left, got the frame in the center or on the right, and you have a longish exposure so we can see the motion of people as they're coming down the stairs. You notice on the left side they're pretty much standing in place, so they're not really that blurry. But the people who are moving, so I'm guessing, it was like 120 or a 25th of a second, something like that. And it adds interest. And I think the black and white definitely works. There's you know, the tonality of it really works. I would consider this what Dan Milner talks about as a transitional photograph.
Mhm.
It it would be, to me, part of the whole story of that book fair. And maybe you had some photographs upstairs, and now you're moving downstairs, so you're kind of using that as a way to transition from one place to another. In filmmaking, you have to do that. If you're cutting from one scene to another, there has to be some kind of a transition in between. And in still photography, when you're doing multiple, like a story, a photojournalistic story, and you're going from one place to another, you want to transition it somehow. And this would definitely
And
serve
this
that
would be
purpose.
that. This is that upstairs photo that you
There's that
mentioned.
upstairs space, and we're seeing all that, and then we transition downstairs, and that would be your transitional photograph. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
Good. Okay.
All right. This next one this is from our good friend Sue. Let me find the caption that she put with this. Sue in Idaho. She put a late October walk in Sun Valley, Idaho.
Wow. With a golden retriever.
Hmm.
We have our own golden here, and she's around here somewhere. I think her mom took her out. Yeah, okay. So Sue, you're listening to my advice. You've got, the punctuation point of the golden and life. Adding life to a photograph always improves it, right? And just the fact that it's just leading, it's kind of the leading line of that trail. Yeah, that's really cool. You guys are doing great. I mean, look at the fall colors. We're capturing fall, we're capturing the seasons. But the dog makes it interesting. Without that, just imagine, just take that out. It's not much of a photograph. It's just kind of a shot. But when you put the dog in there, now it becomes a story. And that's what we're really trying to do with our cameras. It's interesting that people love stories. They love to hear stories. And I should be telling you guys more stories. Like, I haven't. That's what I did in the book Create, is I took the stories from these 12 different people. Like, they all had stories. And they're fascinating. Chris McCaskill, who was the founder or the co-founder of Smug Mug, grew up homeless on the streets of Oakland. Homeless, guys, living under a bridge. He ended up getting an MBA at Stanford, working for Steve Jobs, and becoming a serial entrepreneur. What a story. And he said every day his appreciation of things that everybody else was just taking for granted, just getting an ice cream cone, was a huge deal for him, because he appreciated everything, because he'd been living under the bridge on the streets. So, why am I telling you that? Because you can look at this scene and appreciate the beauty that you see right in front of you. And what you're doing is telling that story with your camera and bringing it to other people. So, well done.
All
Okay.
right. Here's a fun one from Michael Elliott over in the UK. This is a film one titled Leading Light. taken, I believe, with a Kodak from looking at the tags with it.
Wow.
90 millimeter f2.8.
And it's yeah, I see up at the top corner there's
Yep.
yeah, some dust and stuff. So it looks like maybe this was taken a while ago. I don't know. But that's yeah, you're welcome, Sue. By the way, guys, I'm here for you. So if you have a question, like, put it into the chat where we can discuss these things back and forth. Um, very, it's one of those timeless photographs. How when was this taken? This could be in World War
He
II.
posted this just a bit ago, so I think that this is a recent photo.
Yeah, but that's my point about you get a timelessness to your photograph,
Hmm.
like Sue's. When was that picture of the golden retriever? It could be any time practically. What makes it really interesting in this photograph, the fog, but without those two lights, it would be pretty much lost. And you've got an amazing vignetting going on in the bottom right and the bottom left corners there. It's just interesting. Um, and the texture of the water. I consider this again a part of another story. This would be from a photojournalistic standpoint. Maybe you're going to board one of those vessels, you're going to interview the captain, or you're taking a close up, or whatever. I see that as part of that story, not so much a standalone on its own, but a picture that fits in with others. When I was learning photography as a 12-year-old kid, I took my camera around and I made these little stories. There was I remember going to a part of, I remember I heard about some old buildings that were going to be torn down in my town. And I just made a little story about kind of depicting these buildings before they got torn down. And I would go on class trips and take photographs that told the story. It's really a fun thing to do. It's a series of photographs about a certain subject. And it makes you get into that storytelling mode. Again, we as people, as humans, seem to love stories. You know why? Because there's actually a famous quote, which is, and I'm forgetting his name, but I'll think of it in a minute. People forget the past, but they remember stories. Isn't that true? You remember a story. You go, yeah, I heard that when I was a little kid, right? Remember that story. Sometimes it's not always a positive thing, right? We can
Joseph
hear,
Campbell.
thank you. Good. Joseph Campbell. And is that the actual quote? It sounds like you looked it up.
People forget facts, but they remember stories.
Facts. Okay, good. Good point. So they remember a story, it's like you remember Bob Holmes telling you about how he was photographing in bright light, and it was just harsh light and it was terrible to photograph in. So he moved his subject into a tent. I don't know if you guys remember that one. And it was beautiful lighting inside the tent, but outside it was terrible. And you can remember that story. So next time you're out photographing in bright light, you go, oh yeah, maybe I could move this guy somewhere or this person. And that's a story. So Mike says looks like stars. That's interesting. I see that. That adds some interest to it. Anyway, I'm just telling you guys, go in the direction of telling stories with your camera. You're always going to engage your audience. Please subscribe and enable the bell so you don't miss any of our new shows. Like the video and please share it and leave your comments. I love hearing from you. And remember to get out and capture your own images of life.